Alright, well, James back out here again with you. Sitting on the front porch. I've never done a video on the front porch, so I figured it'd be pretty cool. Sitting in the deck chair, enjoying the day. But anyway, this video I wanted to talk about, I get questions all the time. Hey, what kind of air gun should I get? Or more specifically, get that out. What kind of brake barrel should I get? You know, whether it be a coil spring or gas ram. And there's a huge difference, in my opinion, that I found, which I'll show you guys that in the video. But the main difference is supposedly, you know, advertisements saying that they're quieter, smoother shooting, and faster. I mean, that's advertisement. I do notice that the piston, the actual like nitrogen ram or nitro piston guns are a little bit heavier than the coil spring. It's probably because it's a solid piece of metal versus coiled metal that is really not that heavy compared to the nitrogen piston. So I did a little experiment, and as you guys know, you've seen my previous videos. If this is your first time watching the channel, I do, you know, little experiments here and there to figure out what I need to know or figure out something that's on my mind. And in this one, I am using two different brake barrels. One of my favorite currently is the 22 cal Gammo Swarm Fox. It is a coil spring air gun. Awesome shooting gun. It's really fun. I mean, probably, I mean, for the price too, and I got it for around $100 around Christmas time 2019. This thing is on par for what it is. So I've shot the higher end Gammos too, and this is not the same thing as what Gammo has put out before. These are upgraded rifles, and the reason why I know that is I've taken them apart and seen the internals, so there is a big difference. The piston might be the same, but the actual trigger and all that stuff are a little different. Not the standard trigger like on the inexpensive guns from China that are imported through different manufacturers or different brands. The other type of rifle that I'm using in this video is the Crosman Fury nitro piston. It is a nitrogen piston gas ram gun, and it's considerably heavier. I mean, it's probably, both these rifles have a scope on, but this one weighs probably about a pound or two more. I'll measure that and show you. But other than that, they both, funny part is, they both shoot a Crosman Premier Hollow Point 14.3 grain because they're both 22 cal. At the muzzle, pretty much the same velocity, no real difference. 700 and I think it's 30 feet per second, something like that, 720. No difference at all at the muzzle through a chronograph with the same pellet. So I figured this would be a good test to see. And I think they both have pretty much the same barrel lengths. I think one is 15 inches and the other one's 16, so not too much different. But the main reason what I wanted to see was shooting the same pellet in these two guns, one being a nitrogen piston and one being a coil spring. How much different is it and downrange performance? And I can tell you, just by shooting the Gammo Swarm, and I've had the Crosman Fury for almost 3 years now. The Gammo Swarm Fox is just a tack driver every time. There's no fuss, nothing. I mean, even switching pellets, there's no problem. The nitrogen piston Crosman Fury is a little bit different story, again, because they claim it's faster. And the reason why they say that is because there's no hang time. With a coil spring, you have a little bit of timing between the pellet and the piston itself. And I got video footage of showing this versus an actual nitrogen piston, because a nitrogen piston is straightforward fast. I mean, I don't know how fast, but it's super fast compared to a coil. And downrange, that matters big time, whether you hit or miss your target, because if you're fighting a recoil and the piston is actually bottoming out, the piston inside here is actually bottoming out, hitting the end of the chamber to your barrel before your pellet even goes out of the barrel, which I've actually talked about that while your scopes break. And the scope on the Gamo Swarm that came with it has been the same one. I've never messed with it, sighted it in, and it's been on ever since. So I'm going to show you guys a little slow motion clip real quick of comparing these two rifles at 1/8 speed. And I actually shot vertical 0 so I could see if there was an actual rise in the gun as I pulled the trigger. And then before I even pulled the trigger, I sprayed a couple drops of this dry lube at the end of the muzzle so I could track the pellet to see if there was air coming out of the barrel prior to the pellet leaving the barrel. But you'll see that, and let me show you now. Well, you could see there and hear it, that the sound of the piston hitting the chamber on both guns, the actual Gamo Swarm, the piston had a lot of hang time before the pellet even actually left the barrel. And you could see that by just the puff of the lube at the end of the muzzle. And then you could see in the Crosman Fury Nitro piston that the sound came before the puff. And that tells me right there, in which I knew this all along, if you're shooting a pellet that does not work in the gun, those nitrogen piston guns are really picky, because you're not having the perfect timing between the pellet and the piston exiting the muzzle. So I thought this was a very interesting topic to hit on, and I wanted to share my findings with you guys again, even though I've shown this before with the same gun, the Crosman Fury Nitro piston, as to why the scopes break, because it's bottoming out, hitting the chamber before the pellet leaves, and it's going to do damage to the scope, because all those vibrations are just shaking the gun. But I wanted to share that and show it with you, and I thought it was pretty good. It was pretty cool seeing that and hearing it. And I couldn't believe that the actual coil spring the sound difference was that much off from the gun, because I mean, I didn't know how much hang time a coil spring had, since I haven't tested a coil spring like that before. And it's all real time. I mean, I didn't mess with the timing. The only thing I did was slow it down, and that was it. So, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. See you on the next one.